it's time to take a TO with coaches Turner and O'Neill. Produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Krissy.
It's time to take a TO with coaches Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. Your new favorite podcast features conversation from the world of high school, college, and pro sports, along with other riveting content. Connect with us socially at Turner O'Neill Podcast or visit www.turnerando'neill.com. Thanks to our partners, MCF Mortgage, the Tamara Cusick Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Healthy Baller, our sponsors, Next Level Lacrosse, and O'Neill Development LLC. Our donors, Justin O'Neill, donor, Winsight Media, and Redwood Investments. Take a TO with Coach Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Krissy. Now, we welcome you to today's episode as we take a TO with coaches Turner and O'Neill. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Ladies and gentlemen, we open the door for show number 3. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. My name is Kurtis Cross. He is Steve Turner. He is Coach Casey O'Neill. We come to you today. We have no callers on this episode. We're going to have a little bit of fun, and then we're getting into conversation. Now, welcome, gentlemen. It's week 3.
Good to see you. Excited.
Great to be back. Monday night, game day.
But I did not get that game day text this morning. You were hurting this morning? What's the deal?
I was locked in. I was focused on the show. I just slept on it a little bit.
Okay, I'm the one who sent the game day text first.
It doesn't have to be one individual. It takes a team. So I'm glad that one of my teammates.
There you go.
Sent the game day text.
This seems to be a budding bromance here.
Well,
I hope so. I hope so.
I'm getting to know the guy, it's, week 3, we're getting there. Steve, I've known you for a while. I'm getting to know this guy over there.
I love it.
All right. Folks, just yesterday we surpassed 500 Instagram followers. So thank you to everyone who likes, follows, adds, and spreads the word. We love hearing from you guys. We love that you're engaged in what we're doing, but we definitely want you to also tell us, what can we do better? What do you want to hear? Send in your questions, your comments. We want to build the kind of show that everyone would like to be a part of. Now, gentlemen, on this day in 1976, Hank Aaron hit home run number 755. That happened on this day in 1976. So that's not my crazy headline, but I wanted to throw it out there.
That guy could hit the ball smooth. And dare I say it, it was an age before the juice. Definitely. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was. Now, granted, the pitchers weren't throwing like they do now. Those change-ups that are 90 and fastballs hitting upper 90s and
split finger.
But still, man, he was smooth, and those highlights are incredible to go back and see Hank Aaron. So, what an athlete, icon
to the game. Unbelievable to see how he knocked those things out the park and just how he played the game and brought it every single time he stepped on the field.
And there's a reason they called him Hammering, right? Hammering Hank Aaron.
No doubt.
All right, this is an episode that each of you wanted to do, gentlemen. It's unscripted, it's unrehearsed, so I hope that our listeners enjoy what will be an unscripted, earnest conversation today. But here is your one headline for July 20th. Today, Antonio Brown has once again retired. Your thoughts?
Well, honestly, I'm going to talk about empathy a little bit later, but I feel for the guy. You know what I mean? I feel for Antonio Brown. I think there's something going on there. You wonder who he's surrounded himself with. But, I hope he's okay. I tell you that young man could play some football for sure.
Yeah.
There's been talks about our Washington football team for weeks or years trying to, get receivers or players like that. But I wish him well. I don't mean to bring down that comment, but I'm just saying I wish him well. And, man, he could play. It's a shame.
Unbelievable player. Certainly could bring something back to the game that's going to start up here soon. Certainly could help a team win because he can make plays. But I like you too, Casey, is that, the world we're living in right now, there's so much going on. We don't know really what's going on with him.
Right.
We don't know what's going on in his household, maybe how he's feeling. As I said, I believe this time in this pandemic, you're going to see a lot of people dealing with, depression, anxiety.
Right.
And maybe that's some of what he's going through. I know he was trying to get back on the field, and and get back to a game that we know he loves. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt that he loves, but we just don't know what else is going on with him. So I would just say for everybody out there, man, say prayer for him.
And if I think this we can open the door a little bit. Hey, if someone needs help out there, notice the signs, help them out, send them in the right direction, be an ally. Sometimes you just need to be a shoulder. Sometimes folks just want to be heard, and you can be that even balance for them. And hopefully, if there's help needed there, he gets the help. And for anyone who needs the help, there are resources. And I promise you, I have not asked these gentlemen, but if you send an email to us and you need a resource, these guys are all about helping people. So am I. We'll send you in the right direction.
The Starting Five is brought to you by Winsight Media, connecting the food and allied retail industries through research, media, and events. Visit them at www.winsightmedia.com. Winsight Media, unparalleled industry events, actionable research, and insightful media.
The Starting Five. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Starting Five is right here, right now. We're going to go over these rules again because some people sitting at this table, not our engineer, Krissy, and not me, seem to forget that's a 30-second deal. So I'm going to ask questions. They have never seen these questions before, never heard them before. I'm going to start with you, Coach Turner. I started with Coach O'Neill.
Oh, there we go again. There we go again.
Last week. Here are your Starting Five. 30 seconds. Number one, Godfather or Scarface? What you got?
That's a killer.
Mine's Godfather.
Hey, look,
He's already 10
I got 30 seconds.
You got 30 seconds.
I have to go with Godfather.
All right.
You got the sequels, which make it unbelievable.
Right.
The story's unbelievable. One of my favorite movies of all times. So I'm going with The Godfather.
Would you believe I've never seen Scarface?
What?
I've never seen Scarface. Is it Tony Montana?
Tony Montana.
Yeah. I'm a Godfather person, though. Number 3 was okay. I loved 1 and 2. Just for the record, my favorite movie is Life is Beautiful, followed by Godfather. Coach O'Neill, Godfather or Scarface?
I'm going to take the other side here. I'm going to go Scarface.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to go Scarface. Al Pacino, Tony Montoya?
Montana.
Look, I already butchered that, but, definitely Scarface. That movie just, was entertaining. It was a little over the top. It was probably one of the first of that kind where it was just kind of that, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe there's this much incriminating evidence going on and him just, taking dudes out. But I'm going to go Scarface. Godfather to me was just, no offense, everybody, a little too slow. All of them.
All right, number 2. Coach Casey O'Neill, we're coming to you with this one. Bigger bust, Greg Oden or Sam Bowie?
Oh, man, that's a good question there.
And then think about your over and under on how many games they played. I have it right here.
Okay. That I don't know on the over-under in the games. I'm going to have to say Greg Oden. Just because I think I know more about his game and watched him more, and there was much more hype, at least what I was following. But I'm going to go Greg Oden. I don't like talking about guys busting out, so but that's my answer.
Coach Turner, Greg Oden or Sam Bowie? Who's the bigger bust?
You going to my sport and coming at me hard on this one.
Should have gone with you first.
The hype behind Greg Oden coming out was big, so I'm going to have to go with him. But I think you had 2 players who could have had unbelievable careers
Absolutely.
that were derailed because of their injuries.
Sam,
I feel so much better about my answer now that Steve said Greg Oden.
Sam, here's the thing, though. Sam Bowie also had a couple of years of issues in his knee or leg, so we kind of had to not see it coming, but it shouldn't have surprised us. Over under on Greg Oden. How many games did he play in the NBA, guys?
I'll say 50.
What you got?
I'm going to mess this up, but I'm going to say under 10.
It says that he appeared in 105 games total.
Wow. I just don't even remember him playing that much.
No.
Sam Bowie, what was his over-under? It is higher than Greg Oden. I'll give you all that.
Under 300.
All right.
I'll go 200.
He played 139 games. 139 games. The only point I want to bring up, I think Greg Oden was hyped more, but remember, he was also in the digital media age where hype can seem amplified compared to when Sam Bowie came out.
Well, Sam Bowie was a bad boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of the top dogs when he was going through Kentucky.
Right. Coach?
I would agree with that. Me being just a little bit younger than some of the other folks at the table here, I just remember, more hype on Greg Oden coming out, so there you go.
And I don't blame anyone for not taking Jordan over Bowie or Akeem Olajuwon because it was a big man's league. And if I'm not mistaken, when Olajuwon got picked up, didn't they already have Drexler? They had the same position that Jordan played, so you can't be upset, before the fact. But after the fact, you look at it and, I mean, Akeem had a hell of a career. Well, that's not,
Well, Mike and Clyde could have played together.
They could. They didn't want to pick him, though.
Have you finished The Last Dance yet?
Have I started, you said?
Finished it yet? Yeah, the Last Dance.
I've seen a part of episode 1.
Come on.
I'm in the same place I was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
You are the hardest working producer, engineer, DJ, father, and friend.
I'm texting you at 1 in the morning, right?
Yeah,
I'm working.
So I don't blame you, but maybe we'll have a watch party.
We might have to do that. So here's my thing. You say that Drexler and Jordan could have played together. I'm of the opinion, no matter what your needs are in a draft, you pick the best player available to you at the time, even if you don't need him. So I think they should have picked them.
But you go back to what we talked about last week in that the way the game has changed.
Right.
It was a big man's league.
Yeah, it was.
People wanted the best big man.
Right.
I mean, now certainly everybody knows the GOAT is the GOAT.
Right.
But Portland, at that time, that's what they needed.
Right.
They needed a big. And it put them right there.
Right. All right. So let's take a look. The next one. We are kind of predisposed to this one. You'll know what I mean when I say it. Number 3, crab legs or crab feast? That goes to you, sir.
Crab feast.
Hands down.
Hands down. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Close.
If you're a Maryland man, it's crab feast. Crab legs, in terms of what people say the crab leg snow, king, that's not Maryland crab.
No.
You are correct. It is not. And in addition to never seeing Scarface, I'm not a seafood person, so I don't know what's better, crab legs or crab feast. Sorry, guys.
I'm crab feast. Yeah,
they're going to kick me off the broadcast because there's so many I haven't.
Sorry, you've had a lot of different ventures. We're going to have to bring some new things into your life.
All right. If you can do that. If someone out there is listening and wants to bring crabs here, any of these Mondays that we record, we have a sliding glass door and a patio right there. We can go right out there, set up the newspaper, set up a Bluetooth speaker, and we can do the show from outside.
Let's go.
When it's not 100 degrees.
I need my vinegar. That's another question. Are you a butter, vinegar, or just Old Bay, or J.O.'s? Have you ever used the J.O.'s seafood seasoning? It's unbelievable. And it's a Maryland product there, but I am a vinegar guy.
I'm hardcore with the Old Bay, but I always like to dip it into a little cocktail sauce. And then my wife and her mom make their own little special sauce that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Steve, we talked to Joey last week. We're talking crabs now. You keep hyping up Lynn Daring. She's going to have to make something for the podcast, fellas.
She'll do it.
All right. I bet you she would. She's the most wonderful mother-in-law outside of my own that I know. Gentlemen, number 4, harder to do, hole in one or pitch a no-hitter?
Oh, man. Well, I've never had a hole in one myself.
Nor have I.
Okay. People always ask me, you have one? And my brother has one. And they ask me, I say, I have one less than my brother, so they don't know that I haven't done it yet. But I got to go no-hitter. I've got to go no-hitter in the MLB. These hitters are so good. And I know you feel like you hear about them more often now, but there's just so many great athletes right now. I just feel like you see hole-in-ones all the time. I got to go no-hitter. I have to go no-hitter.
I'm with you today. We're rolling together a lot today, Casey. I'm with you. The no-hitter.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You certainly see less of those on SportsCenter than you do in the top 10, the hole-in-ones.
Right.
And the perfect game, I know you said no-hitter, but the perfect game.
I was thinking about asking perfect game.
Is bar none. Yeah, no walks, nothing, nobody on.
Right. No errors.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The thing for me with the hole-in-one is pure luck almost every time. You don't plan to hit a hole-in-one. It's wind, it's trajectory, it's did you slice it,
Right.
you can't really plan that. And I think if you have your best stuff as a pitcher, okay, I'm onto something here, and you can will yourself into throwing your best stuff.
And a hole in one is just you hitting the ball. I mean, a lot of things have to happen for that no-hitter.
Correct.
The catcher, the signs, the batter, everything that's going on, and just the fielders behind you. You need all those factors to come together.
Krissy's looking at us. Did we go past 30 seconds on that one, Krissy?
Maybe.
Thank you to DJ Krissy, by the way. We thank her every week for producing or engineering the podcast. Number 5, our final one. Is Baker Mayfield the answer in Cleveland?
Unbelievable talent. I don't know that he's the answer because I don't think he can get it done by himself. They need more pieces to be able to get to the promised land.
Didn't they pick up a few pieces last season, but that didn't work so well?
Didn't. And I still don't think they're there. There's some other teams that are really talented that are going to be right back in the thick of things again this year.
He's a fun athlete to watch. He's charismatic. I think he pushes the edge a little bit. But man, when you're playing in the AFC North with the Steelers defense, the Ravens defense, and even Cincinnati's always says they're getting better, but but those two teams playing against the Steelers and the Ravens. Steve, you're right. He's got to get some pieces around him. I think he's got to, work on some things in terms of just trying to take too many risks. And what they need is a good line and good running back. So
I agree.
But it's the Browns, man.
It's the Browns, led by Baker Mayfield, not Johnny Manziel.
Not Money Manziel. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's your starting 5. The starting 5. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. Would like to thank the following friends of the program: Gene and Clarinda Carter, Sean Clifton, Paula Cross, Justin O'Neill, Susan and Brendan O'Neill Sr., Amy O'Neill Richard, Marcus Taylor. If you'd like to become a friend of the program, simply go to www.turnerando'neill.com and click Partnerships.
The fine folks at MCF Mortgage believe that integrity is the cornerstone of their business, and whether you're seeking out your first mortgage or next mortgage, it should be about building relationships and helping you achieve your financial goals. Ray Cruz is the branch manager and one of the mortgage solutions specialists. Contact MCF Mortgage today and they will guide you through your mortgage made simple. MCF Mortgage, 301-761-2278 or www.raycruz, that's CRUZ.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an additional friend of the program. I wake up this morning and I see that we have another friend of the program, Damian and Brooke Stevenson. We'd like to thank you for being a friend of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, on to our next segment. These two gentlemen in front of me told me from the day that we started this podcast, when Steve, you gave me a text and said, give me a call. You had this guy that wanted to do this podcast. You guys have told me repeatedly, you're not going to run away from the uncomfortable conversations that may come up through our time in doing a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some uncomfortable conversations to have in this world right now. These two gentlemen, Coach Turner and Coach O'Neill, want to attack it right now. Gentlemen, we're going through some interesting times in our country and our world. From the pandemic to, Black Lives Matter to, race relations in our state, in our area, in our country, in our world. We have something to talk about. You guys wanted to do it, so I commend you for that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, unscripted, unrehearsed. These guys want to talk. I'm going to lead the conversation. I imagine it's going to take them where they want it to go. I'm going to open up. Gentlemen, in the past, we'll say 6-8 weeks, this country has seen a lot. We've seen the beauty of our humanity, and we've seen the not so good side of our humanity in all of this. We've seen protests, we've seen riots, we've seen people hug each other, we've seen people scream through fences at each other, we've seen riot gear, we've seen a lot. Tell me, what is it like for each of you, the conversations in your peer groups, as we've entered into what we hope to be an eye-opening, life-changing phase that changes the course of history? Please, as you wish.
Some tough conversations, but definitely some needed conversations. I mean, I'll talk to a little bit of what I've been doing with some Sunday evenings. I mean, when the pandemic hit, that was a sad time. But then when everything else hit, and you're seeing George Floyd killed on TV, it changed a lot of things for me. And it got me just to a point of being angry, to a point of being sad, to a point of being fearful, to a point of worry. Certainly really, really concerned for family, friends, but my two boys are the ones that really, really come to mind when I watch everything that's gone on and how our world has been, I don't even want to say been turned upside down. It's been turned upside down, but now we're seeing it live and in color. And as you say, talk to my peer groups. It went on for a while where I was, I felt like I was getting the check-in calls.
Right.
I think some of it to me was, all right, how's Steve? Is he going to be the angry black man? And I wasn't, and I took those calls in. But what got me to my peer group conversations were, I felt like I've got a group of friends that I've known way more than half of my life, many of them from middle school. And then there's a group it's a pretty special group that I've been friends with since high school. And I didn't hear from any of them. And once I got through with being angry about all that was going on, and I had a conversation with one of them, I felt like it was time to make a call and bring this group together. Yeah. And I bring that group together because it's an eclectic mix of men.
I was going to mention that your peer group is, a little bit of everyone who represents a little bit of everything.
It does, and not only that, in their marriages and their upbringing of now their children, it's really an eclectic mix. And for me to not hear from them, I felt at that time like I got a call to the table, and they weren't just guilty. I didn't reach out to them either, but at the time, once I realized it needed to happen, I did, and I just said, hey, I'm putting in a Zoom call. I expect you to be there at this time. If you're my friend, I expect to see you on this call. And I left it at that. Don't call me. Don't ask what it's about. Just be there.
Steve, we've worked together for many years and had some deep conversations, maybe not race related over the years, but I think in a way, in the last 8 weeks, this has really put a flashlight deep into the situation that's going on, right?
No doubt.
With our young people, with everything. But I feel like over the years in our conversations, you've alluded to in ways with maybe the way things, somebody might have said something to you, maybe at work, not people we work with, or the way you've been treated. And sometimes just, see, from my perspective, being a white coach, 42 years old, what I'm learning now is the best thing I can do to educate myself is to listen, to try to understand, to have empathy, to help facilitate that to the young people. But the reason I interrupted you there is because I feel like over the years, you were kind of alluding to some of these things before any of this happened. And I could just, I don't know if it was helpful to just sit there and talk. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
It's always been helpful to talk. I mean, I think for me, talking is, through all of what's going on right now, it's certainly been therapeutic. And it was why I felt like I needed to bring on and had that deep conversation with what I would call my peer group.
Right.
And my core, my core, what I call my best friends.
Right.
Because I felt like, part of me was asking questions. What's the substance to this relationship now? Are we just a group of guys that's gotten older, and when we have an opportunity, we can call each other up and meet at somebody's house and pop a few back and just make it a social thing? I was like, here's something that's serious, and it's going to touch every single one of our houses. I just felt it a call to order, and I can tell you, having had these conversations for the last month now, it's brought a lot of good things to light. I think some guys have heard some things that maybe they weren't ready to hear, but I know that we have an ability and we have a platform to be able to make a change. And I think that's something that both you and I, Casey, have in terms of being coaches and being mentor to young men. We have a platform to help create the change that we all want, or that so many of us want to see in this world today. So, it was time to just, as we're talking about now, I had to have some uncomfortable conversations with some people who I cared about.
And letting people know, especially what we're doing now, that it's okay to have this uncomfortable conversation. In fact, it has to happen, because I think of those two words that are comfortable. We get through something like this, and then everything goes back to this comfort level, and then things get uncomfortable. But you have to have those for any type of change. And as I mentioned before, earlier on, talking about empathy, I don't know what you go through day to day, but just the fact of listening and trying to educate myself, I mean, we got to let our young people know.
I think getting to our youth is important. I mean, that's where I believe the change that we want and the change that we talk about and change that it's been heard, amongst our leaders in the country who do want to see change. It's getting to our youth and getting them to be able to be prepared for things that they're going to have to do that will affect and make that change. So, it was important also for me as a coach to have that uncomfortable conversation with my players and our team, and I felt a lot came out of it. We got into some Zoom calls, and we were just hearing each other out, and I think we mixed up who was on that call. It wasn't just the players; it was our coaches, it was our alum who played in the program, guys who went to the school. We brought in faculty members. I think the blessing is, before all this happened, our school decided to bring in and hire Mr. Leary as diversity coordinator,
inclusion. Yeah.
And so for being able to have him be on that call with me that first day and help moderate and talk to our kids and get them to open up, man, it was powerful.
So we did a similar, and our sports are different, right? I mean,
can I ask the question? Historically, the two sports you have are different. You guys always beat me to it. You move on to the next thing. Historically, your two sports have appealed to two different demographics. They're vastly different. So I imagine the conversation or even the effort to provide a forum which is rich in support and an outlet to be heard is different. Now, guys, talk to me about what the approach is for each of you.
So, yeah, with lacrosse, which has historically been a more white sport,
right?
I keep going back to that word, an uncomfortable feeling of I have to address this with our young men, and I can go back to over the years with some different situations, but one of my assistant coaches, a guy named Thomas Alford, played at the University of Maryland. His twin brother, Harry, have both dealt with being minorities in the sport, right? So the hard part was coaching with him for 12, 13 years. Thomas and I never had this conversation, right? We show up, we work, we work with the kids, and a couple weeks ago, I'd seen that they were presenting to the University of Maryland and other Division I programs, and this presentation had to do with their experience as black lacrosse players, their experience with some very negative feedback from other teams over the years, and sort of their process, a historical, educational aspect to this Zoom meeting, and then a Q&A with the boys. And you know what I noticed when we had this Zoom meeting, that the kids were very engaged, and that's the beauty of it, because the kids know that they want to be able to do something. They want to be educated, and it was probably an hour and a half Zoom meeting, something we've never done before, just on race issues alone, and it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable night for me to invite former black players to come back and to be a part of it. To have our strength coach Marcus Taylor be there, who's he on social media he's out there and just doing amazing things. So. Yeah, Kurtis, I will say this about the sport of lacrosse, and I mentioned it about being the fastest growing team sport in America, but lacrosse can really do some good things. You get that community, you get those young folks kind of firing up. That's the change we need. Those are the kids. Would you agree, Steve, that going out there and representing social justice, what is right, being inclusive with the sport. Our sport continues to try to be more diverse, but we're not close yet.
Right.
But those uncomfortable conversations, and I can't thank Coach Alford and his brother Harry for doing that for us.
I think one of the things I'd love to see, and it's maybe something the two of us can do, Casey, is bringing our groups together. Like,
right.
Start more across the line. Like you said, we have two sports that look a lot of times vastly different,
right,
in terms of the race of the players in the game. And I know that in talking to our young black men and our young white men in some individual conversations, like, they're hearing their brothers. They're on both sides. And I just think I would love for our community of Gonzaga to keep having that uncomfortable conversation. And we've had some as a faculty. We've had some, again, like with some other small groups. But I think, my biggest fear for this whole thing is that it just dies. Like, it's not as big of a play on the
Get back
news.
To that comfort level. Everything,
Right.
Okay, we're good, right? But
yeah.
no.
It's not. We're still far away.
Away.
So I want to keep having the conversation. I'm willing to keep pushing, this movement and making sure that it's being heard and trying to show our youth, because I don't know that I'll ever in my lifetime see the change that I dream of and want for all of us happening anytime soon. So I've made it my personal business that I'm going to stay all in and be in the fight and be able to help in any way I can and use the platforms that I have access to for me to be able to spread the word that I feel, talk about things that everyone can do to help create the change that we want to see. But I think keep mixing kids up and having those conversations are very, very important.
One of the things we always say, to the kids is, well, we've seen our basketball and lacrosse kids work out together. In fact, we've both been up there in the weight room when they're having a challenge. Our strength coach does a good job of, whether it's a bench day or a deadlift day, and they're going against each other. The music's going and the guys are having a great time. I think those young men would completely embrace those conversations, because they do everybody gets along so well, but it's just pushing them a little bit. Yeah. A little bit more.
I think the thing I got to from those conversations was, some of our alums spoke up really well, and some of the things that they were able to talk about in terms of their experiences, life experiences, whether it's been on high street or just in life in general, and then for the feelings that they have for their friends, that they know that they don't walk maybe in the same shoes that the other ones walk in. Being able to empathize and being able to want to hear more of their experiences and to still talk about their own, because I've said this to a few people. I think I've said it to you guys off the mic, is that one of the kids I fear for the most is the young white male who wants to see change, who's all in for the change. He's got a group of brothers who are black, and he wants to be a part of this. He's standing and he's ready to go stand on the front lines and protest. But he's in a household where he can't have that conversation.
Right.
I feel for that. I feel for that young man too, that young lady too. How do we help them be able to have a conversation in their own households that's tough to have? Because
the same family, when you watch a basketball game or a lacrosse game or any sport at that matter, you got your teammates back, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going out there. Hey, that guy just gave me an elbow. I'm going to check in and, I might give him a good box out or a nice slash on the arm. You got his back. So what's the difference? Why can't we have those young men have the back of their brothers and friends and guys out in the social world
who don't look like them, right?
Right. It's the same. I mean, sports teaches so much. It teaches you to deal with adversity. It teaches you to, but that's life. That's life too. And Steve, that's a good point about those families or what's being said at the dinner table. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking.
Your players look to you guys for direction in many different ways. On the field, on the court, in practice, within the school, you lead them. If I know anything about either one of you guys, you want to see them at 3 o'clock for practice. But at 1 o'clock, if you pop by the classroom, You want to make sure they're doing the right thing. You support them in many ways. So how must you now add to that role, given the importance of what we're going through as a coach? There's another dimension now. And I'm not suggesting at all that you guys have forsaken that dimension before, but it's amplified. And now there's got to be a piece to the puzzle that addresses this. So what are those plans like for you guys?
Well, I mean, I think...
And you started with the Zoom. The Zoom is,
Zoom was definitely the start. And I would say, I think we talk to these young men about all different type of things in life. I mean, we're the parent. We're the third parent at school. Sometimes the second, sometimes the first.
Right.
So there's already been some tough conversations. But as we know, during this pandemic, Pandora's box got open, wide open.
Right.
And this is a topic and a subject that we have to continue to keep having with our players, with the kids around our school, not just our own, within our own wheelhouse of our sport, but I think the community that we live and work in as well. And I, like I said earlier, I plan to keep having those conversations and being there and being in a safe haven in an open place that kids are going to know if this is something they want to talk about. They can always walk into Coach Turner's office and have that conversation.
Yeah, you want to be there for them. In the last few years, I've grown more, in spiritual direction myself, and I've gone into the team meeting rooms and before we watch tape or go over a scout and say little things like change the world. Let's just change the world.
Right.
Let's wake up tomorrow and try to change the world, boys. And they might brush it off, but I'll really look them in the eye and be like, no, you have the opportunity to do that. And granted, it's a quote, it's a statement, but a lot of times the kids think, well, this world's crazy. How can I change it? And I said, well, have you looked deep enough? Can you flash a little bit deeper? It just, I think it takes that continual push with the fellows. It takes, like Steve said, just being there, letting them know your office is open. I've dealt with a lot of things with young men, and I don't want to go over all the different things that they have going on in their lives, but I mean, you think about it, right? Whether it's trouble at home, whether it's abuse things, substance, whatever it is. I mean, not just the X's and O's of the sport. These kids are going through a lot. And then the social media, the things they follow, the things they're looking at. I mean, let's be honest, social media is huge for these guys. Mm-hmm. And if they choose to follow certain things on Twitter, that's what's going to be their content. That's what they're going to see.
Right.
That's what they're going to, continue to and sometimes music too, the music they're listening to and so much. But as long as there are strong women and men in their lives and they know they're cared for and the door's open, kids are going to talk. They're going to come and we just got to keep pushing, And we have to know that we can learn from them as well. I learn more from them, and they're always darn smarter than me. They are. They really are. And it's kids want that. They want that direction. They want to work hard, and they want you to care, and they want to know that they got an opportunity to do something. And I think in sports, we have an incredible opportunity in both our sports to teach these lessons.
No, I think the kids, they're way smarter than we give them credit for. I mean, in doing these Zoom calls, the thing that I found out some things about my own child sitting in my own house.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Please,
how proud you are.
Please tell us about that, Steve.
To have him, he's been on some Zoom calls outside of just the ones at Gonzaga. He's had some with his AAU team. I mean, to be able to get text messages from other parents, talking to the fact of how he handled himself on the call and how he was willing to speak up and how he was able to articulate what he felt and what he's going through. It was special. And then to be able to have him come right back on our Zoom call and, I mean, looking on the screen and who's ready to say something, and he's got the hand up first. And then for me to be able to hear it directly, him articulate to a lot of what he's had to go through. Being a byproduct of dad who's black, mom who's biracial, being, in some circles where sometimes he's the only one.
Right.
And some of that was done purposefully. I'm going to be honest with you. I wanted to know at the end of the day that my son was going to be able to walk around and handle himself in all walks of life.
Right.
He went through grade school, almost up to middle school being the only black male in his class. Comes home, knocking on my door. I'm banging on Casey's office. I got to find lacrosse equipment.
Yeah, I got you, Steve. I got you covered.
And then he's the only black male on his team. And then you look at some of his other sports. He plays basketball with a group of kids who are mostly from PG County and DC and Baltimore, and he's the only kid from suburban Montgomery County. And I think it's paid off in a lot of ways that his upbringing has allowed him to see so many walks of life.
And that's the beauty of it.
And there's no doubt the beauty of it. And then for him to be able to articulate on a Zoom call the history of what is going on in terms of Black Lives Matter. And then him to be able to talk about it from before he was even alive to today lets me know a few things. He's getting taught certain things in the school that needed to be taught. He's comprehending it.
Don't walk away from it. That's good parenting too, Steve.
No, there's no doubt. You know me, I'm not a guy to pat myself on the back. I had to give that all to Leah. And I certainly, I know I do my part, but I'm just proud of the young man he's becoming. I mean, like I said, during this pandemic, to be up at 1:30 in the morning because I can't sleep because this thing is eating me up, and I'm watching the news over and over, and I'm finding myself trying to get away from the screens, and he's up at 2:00 in the morning talking to a friend who he met, white male, who he met at a camp from Chicago, and telling him what it's like to be a black male, young male in today's society. And then to hear him talk about some of his relationships and how they've changed, it's tough, man. It's tough.
And let me guess. Jared and that young man knew each other for weeks, or how long were they together during that?
1 weekend.
1 weekend they developed that.
One weekend, and they developed that relationship.
And that young man,
and that goes to Kurtis. What I'm saying, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
That goes to what I said earlier. Our kids are going to be the ones that make this change, and it's those conversations like that have to keep being had. And there's more to it. I mean, we're going to get into, changing of how we teach these kids to understand how to vote. Even ourselves as adults. I know there's so many people who just say I'm a part of a party, and they go in and they look at the ballots and they just say, okay, let me check all the R's or let me check all the D's, and they're not even looking at who's really there to make a change for them in their lives, or the people around them. And then we get people in these offices who really aren't for you, and you thought you should have been voting for them because they're under one party. Like there's so much more to this.
A lot more. Wow, that's a heck of a part one on this. Part two is coming up right on the other side of the break.
This segment is brought to you by O'Neill Development. O'Neill Development specializes in custom residential work, providing extensive pre-construction and construction services. O'Neill Development, building, remodeling, and development since 1975. Visit www.o'neilldev.com.
Next Level Lacrosse. Train like a Spartan. Next Level Lacrosse is dedicated to providing a terrific lacrosse experience that is intensely focused on player development and character formation. Located in Kensington, Maryland, find us at www.nextlevelspartans.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting with us and listening to Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. We're having the uncomfortable conversation. We're talking about race. We're talking about race in society, in American sports, in the schools, in our homes. We are attacking it right now. I want to read something, a text I got from a friend who my family and I love so dearly. And she sent this to me while all this was going on. We were in the height of it exactly 2 months ago, May 25th. I cherish you so much. I know that each and every day there is work I need to do to help ensure your kids grow up in a safer and more fair world. Work I need to do to ensure your voice is amplified and recognized in the ways it should be. I am here and ready and more than willing to support you and the family in any way I can. I love you. That's my friend Emma in Philadelphia. She is a social worker. She's going on to get a doctorate. But, these are the kind of conversations that are occurring. I got more than one text like that from friends telling me, I'm watching things that are going on, and I had no idea as a black man what you might go through or might not go through. I will say that for some, they don't recognize that skin color is a badge or a shield that they wake up with every day and may not realize what it entitles them to. Now, let's not mix that up with suggesting that anyone who has a fairer skin uses that entitlement, but it's something that, Steve, you and I are not small guys. If I walk into a room, I might be imposing because I'm a larger guy. It's not my intent to do that, but it's a privilege. I wouldn't call it a privilege, but it's something I walk in the door with. And being men, we walk into a room and there's an advantage of being a man versus a woman, which is another podcast episode coming up. But Casey, you and Krissy are white. You have an advantage in society with that skin. Again, we don't suggest that you walk around knowing this and say, hey, I want to do this because I'm white. But there's so many layers to this. And I just, I've got a bunch of questions here, but gentlemen, do we need to pick up where we left off? What do you think about the text I got? Let this be everyone's conversation.
I mean, I'm going to go back to, I think what I said in the last segment. For me, 42 years old, lacrosse coach, father of 3, white male, and beginning to really educate myself, or beginning to, because of what I want the kids that I coach, what I want my own children to understand is, there's a phrase that I can't help others unless I'm recognizing, my own faults, right? I got to handle those. So
that's good.
So until I get to that, and listening, to the segment you sent me the other day, to sharing thoughts with my sister who works in social justice with the State Department, and just learning, the best thing I can do is just continue to listen and educate myself. And by educating myself, it's going to be not just reading things, but understanding the dark history, right?
Right.
A lot of pain, and I'll never understand it, but that will help me facilitate to the young men. That will help me put that in to their families and to these young men. So that's where I feel like is the best start for me. And then listening, like I said, listening. And if you want
it's tough because, we don't undo in a few months during COVID what has happened over hundreds of years. And what we must look at is this is, Steve, even for you and I, being black men in Montgomery County, in Maryland, in these United States, have we been programmed in such ways? I'm not going to talk about, there's a conspiracy and this, that, and the other, but what I will talk about is, even, in our own lives, have we been guilty of thinking or acting or assuming and doing things in ways that are not positive and not, productive for equality in the races? It's get uncomfortable. When we think about young folks listening to music loud on the corner, do we all as a society think that they could be white or black or Latino kids, or are we thinking that they're mostly minority kids? There's so many ways that this affects us daily, and I don't walk around, nor am I the angry black man, but life has, taught us some things or steered us in directions, and I don't know that which of us is innocent of having prejudices, and which of us is innocent from, not thinking a certain race does this, a certain creed does this, a certain color of person does this. And, I love where I went to school, and I talked to someone about this. Steve, both you and I went to Blair, and my best friend wasn't Spanish Jose, he was Jose. And you weren't Black Steve, you were a guy who played basketball, and man, I wish I could play like him, that kind of thing. But at the same time, did that wonderful melting pot that had 60, 70, 80 different countries recognized there in our school, was there a small bit of disservice done to us because we didn't really see color, and it actually does exist? And outside of our utopia of Blair, were we prepared as well as we could have then?
I think it, I've been going over this and over, so it's a great question, Kurtis. No, I think in a lot of ways it did a disservice. I think unless you got put into situations where you saw what was real, right. Sometimes we were we were put in a position to almost turn the cheek because it's not happening to me. That wasn't me. You know, you have empathy when you hear a friend go through a situation, and then you don't feel it until it happens to you.
Right.
And I think, you know, like it was the blessing and the curse. I think the blessing.
Yeah,
I think the blessing was like I'll never forget my experiences at Blair because of what I called the melting pot. I used to always say we're Benetton. We're just Blair's United Colors. Like everyone gets along. It didn't matter what race, creed, and color you were. You saw so many people.
And you have friends like Vic, like Iran, like Ray, like Ted Roberts, like Tony Effia. I mean, we're talking, I just named only 2 black guys in that group. Everyone else is something else. You know, you have Tony Shropshire, you have Jane Hodges, you have all these people. We went to school, Russell Wells. Yeah, we have all these people, you know, who are of so many different races. I look at your friends, and I promise you, you may have 2 people, maybe 3 of the same race, but you know, Wilbur. I mean, just everyone's different. And I cut you off there, but you have that United Nations. I was friends with Jimmy Chep Curry, and I was friends with Victor Iwugo, and these guys are, you know, African cats. And then there was Jose, and there was, you know, your group. I will always say this, guys. Steve's group made sure that I was a friend to them. They were heavily athletic. I was not, and they really brought me in. But that's what we did at Blair. But you're talking about turning the other cheek, and maybe that didn't paint for us a picture where people do see color, because these groups of ours did not.
No, I mean, I think with that, Kurtis, you know, you say how do you you know, now create change or create an opportunity to continue to talk about this is, I mean, I find myself during this time because we're stuck at home. I'm re-educating myself, whether it's watching film, listening to podcasts, you know, you're reading books, you're paying attention to the what's in the media and what's, you know, back in the day, you looked at the news just to see what was on the news. Now you're looking at it a whole different way than we used to, and I think to help be a part of change, I got to make sure that I know what I'm speaking to and about. I got to know how to make sure that I'm passing it down, and that's to our next generation. So, you know, I'm dedicated to it, and the only way, you know, I can only get better from learning from my mistakes, and I think, Casey, you keep hitting on it. One of the biggest ways for us to learn is to listen. Like sometimes people just talk too much, and the guy down in the White House, he talks too much. He don't listen. He doesn't care, and that frustrates me, and I'm kind of getting angered by saying what I just said.
We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should do twice as much listening as we do talking.
That's a really good quote right there.
No, it's not my quote week. I'm just talking here. Casey, you came up in Montgomery County. And what was your experience like? How far did you look down the street before you saw a face that didn't look like yours?
That's a good question. You know, growing up in Montgomery County, kind of out in the sticks, in the woods, northern Montgomery County, it really wasn't until probably playing, you know, sports, but at a little higher age, not youth sports, but you know, getting closer to high school. And I'll be honest, when I got down to Gonzaga, I thought it was the coolest thing that there was so much more diversity than what I grew up with, and that was the reason I wanted to go there, and not some of the other schools where I grew up. So it went from just being, oh, this is great, and sports was such a good gap to be making new friends, black, white, wherever they came from, PG County, Montgomery County, Virginia, DC, and it was very comfortable, right? It was very comfortable, but we never really had the conversations, you know? No one had those conversations.
It was welcoming,
because it was just very welcoming, and to me, it was fun. You know, going on to college, you know, playing lacrosse 24/7 there, kind of got back to not as diverse, and then going back to work at Gonzaga, you know, that love again too, coming back to be able to be in a more diverse area in the middle of the city, right? And to see the things that you see. But again, comfortable. It just, and I took it for granted until events like recent or before that made us have these difficult conversations, or growing and actually deepening and maturing and having a conversation with someone like Steve or somebody like Coach Alford. That really, I keep going back to the comfort level. And here's the thing. Nobody likes change, right? People are scared that things are going to change. I would say usually older people, the young kids, they kind of go with the flow. But when you bring that change up now, that hard, real change, people panic a little bit, right? They don't like it. I don't know, Kurtis, if I answered that question, but it was, you talk about. Go ahead.
I want to go to the comfortable, like you used that, and I think where I've comfortable for me has always been in sport.
Yeah.
But sport also was the place where I learned racism.
Okay.
And in that, you play sports, and if you're beating another team, teams are different makeup of people. I mean, the number of times I've been called the N-word because of either, tackle a guy on the soccer field and he didn't like the way I tackled him. Foul a guy going to the rim, he didn't like the way I fouled him. I mean, and I've heard it from all other races outside of my own.
Right.
Latino kids call me an N-word on the soccer field.
We don't have, the FCC doesn't regulate what we say here, so say what you will.
To have white male call me that on the baseball field. Call me it in the basketball game, in the park. You know how it is in the park.
Right.
Everyone's trying to win and do everything they can. They're going to try to do whatever they can to get underneath your skin. And that word was used so many times. And it caused me to be in fights. It caused me at times to be angry. It caused me at times to feel like I had to defend myself. And I would always have to walk away from that situation and be able to have a conversation with family member or friend in the why. And never feeling like I was ever getting a real answer to the why. I've always kind of kept that inside of me, and certainly something that I just pray and hope that my boys wouldn't have to go through.
Right.
And I don't even know if they have, because they don't talk about it. And that's a part of the change I want to see, where we're not going to that ultimate disgracing another human being by using those words.
Casey, you've been on many a field. You played basketball. I think we've spoken about that. So you came up playing sports, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, and all of that. From your perspective, Steve and I cannot speak from your perspective. Where have you been? Where has sports taken you in terms of that racial divide? I mean, you've been on a lacrosse field, I assume, where you're a member of a team that's all white guys, or whatever teams you've played on. I don't want you to uncover names, but is there locker room talk that you would not be proud to have had to witness?
Absolutely, and not just race related, with many things, right? And again, going back into, this is well before social media. Things said in the locker room, things done in the locker room, music listened to. I remember the first time we started to hear in the 80s and 90s, if you listen to Dr. Dre or Snoop, or you listen to Ice Cube, and some of the things that a lot of the kids would start to listen to, that made it comfortable. And okay, we can all listen to the music and maybe talk that way. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying, absolutely, you heard it in games or you heard it in locker rooms. But it goes back to that comfort. I mean, it was just like, it was just too comfortable. And I'm not saying there was a huge problem back on I Street or others. I'm just saying that in the heat of the battle that Steve was alluding to, you may have gotten, one of my black teammates said that young man on that, he didn't call him a young man, but that guy over there said this, and that goes back to team sports. So immediately in a game, we're all going to go after that guy or try to do something. But
again, the comfortable, uncomfortable, and it talks to where you were just talking about, Casey, with the music at that time.
Which was speaking something that we took for granted as white kids.
Well, think about it. You had black males using the word nigger, as in nigga,
right,
as a term of endearment.
Right.
And then people got comfortable in thinking that they could do that.
So they normalized it. To the listener.
To a listener, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go back to times of friends of mine using it as a term of endearment, knowing that wasn't what they weren't meaning, as I would say, ER versus
A.
The A.
Right.
And we've talked about that in our conversations, like that there's no way that shit should have ever happened. Right. And it can't happen anymore.
But yet it still is played in the locker rooms, on the bus, or in the iPods. It's in the weight room. We had to change. It's still that's still something. I think there's more of an awareness now, at least. But I don't want to pinpoint music in that, making it that relevant or okay. But it was. That goes into that comfort of the guys. Everybody's singing it, Well,
why not? Why not talk about the music though? Because everyone has headphones on as they get off the bus. So we're all listening to music, be it Metallica, be it Dr. Dre, be it Ariana Grande. Because there's some. We can listen to Ariana Grande. Is that going to be my pasta moment there?
I think you just said it. But you have the ability to edit. I don't.
I also have Johnny Manziel moments. But when people listen to the music, because okay, when people,
Krissy, you got your work cut out for you this week. You got a lot of editing.
Yes, she does. But let's go to the music. Guys are getting off of a team bus, or they're getting off, out of an airport, or whatever they're doing, listening to music. Our professional athletes are doing it, and to the listener, they've normalized, certain words, whether they talk about folks of different races in those words, if they talk about, men or women in derogatory words. So is that a shield where people listen to it? Oh, I'm only singing a song. I don't really feel this way. How does that go? I mean, didn't someone 2 or 3 years ago, NCAA, they were in the big dance, and they were going to be on the draft board, but when they were 15, they were a sophomore or whatever in high school, they quoted a song, and that came back up.
Right.
Speaking to a social media thing that I'm sure we'll dive into at some point.
Sure.
Got to be careful what you tweet and retweet. But someone was quoting a song, and then now they're on the draft board, and, the owner of the team looks, and they're, whoa, did he tweet that 2 years ago? Do we need that,
right,
in our locker room?
But how do we teach the kids that these lyrics aren't okay, or, this artist isn't putting something out there? Because, I mean, again, I always tell the kids, it's not just rap. I mean, you like country music, talk about drinking and girls and swinging around and rock music and some of the things that are in some of the heavy metal. Like, come on. I mean, it's music and it's art and it's all of that. And we don't want to, shield our kids from art, but it goes into the balance. It goes into those conversations about what is right and what is wrong. And again, just the balance of it all. But look, I've been in a situation before a game, and a young man had the headphones on, and he's just, I don't hear the music, but he's saying the words, and used the word that was in the song, and I pulled him aside. I was so mad, but I also didn't know what to do. I was so like, what do I say here, or what do I do to this young man? Because down the way was 2 black teammates who they hear the kids listen to those songs all the time, right? And I had the uncomfortable conversation at that moment. I was nervous, but we had it. And I said, are you guys okay with it? Is everything good? And he's, I won't do it again. I'm sorry, coach. And we just kind of talked it out for a minute. And I felt good after it, but I was nervous. I was really, really nervous. This is probably 8 or 9 years ago. But first time I had to step in and say something.
Right.
I mean, there's so many times, as coaching guys, like you said, they got the headphones on and you're having to, on a bus or you walk in the locker room, hey, watch that language. I mean, I think it's just keep having conversation. You have to keep having conversation, and talking about what's right and what's wrong.
Right. And the kids know. For the most part.
We talk about the music. Professional sports, are they doing enough? They have a voice. They have a platform. The NFL, I haven't heard a heck of a lot, but I'm hearing some things. NHL, I've heard nothing. MLB, I've heard nothing. The NBA, I spoke to a friend several weeks ago that thought that this was the wrong thing for the NBA to get to work because the social justice fight will get lost. And people wanting to go back and watch games now, and they have something to take their mind off of it. People are on different sides of the fence. We need to get our mind off of it. No, we need to stay in the fight. Of course, the NBA has done a great job, I think, of bringing lots of social media and worldly issues to the forefront. NBA cares. The NBA underwrites the WNBA, trying to create equality in the sport. There's NBA Africa. There's so many things that are going on with the NBA, and I can speak to that because I'm an NBA head. But what about these other sports? Are they doing enough? Is their playing taking away from these social justice movements? I don't know if it will or will not, but I know that each of those sports has a stage that they can use to further the conversation that hopefully 1,000 people in the next week listen to here, but they can reach 28,000 people, in one tweet.
My first take on it, I didn't mean to jump ahead of you, Steve, is
No, you're good.
I think I mentioned in last week's podcast or the one before about professional sports are going into the individual driven, in terms of following, your favorite team in the NFL or NHL or NBA, whatever it is. But if you're a young fan, you are following the Twitter of LeBron James. You're following the Twitter of Tom Brady. You're following the Twitter of Alex Ovechkin, whoever it is. And I think a lot of times, more so than not, that those individuals are posting the right things or putting out the right things. You know what I'm saying by that? Mm-hmm. So while these teams and the corporate world are certainly sponsoring different charities and things like that, I think a lot of individuals are doing good things and putting out the right message. Because I follow a lot of those guys, that are whether in the NHL or the NFL. The NFL, and that's a whole different segment to talk about, like what's going on there and all the the different teams and these owners. But I think a lot of the individuals in professional sports are doing the right thing. Could they do more? I don't know, Steve. What do you think?
I mean, I would agree. I think there's a lot of individuals doing the right things. It is going back to play going to downplay what has happened or force it to lose its steam. It quite possibly could, but I think you've got NBA players right now that are still speaking on it. I mean, today was a great example.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris, Sixers, came to the podium, and he made a statement today, and it was my only answer to you guys, and every question you're going to answer for me. Daniel Cameron, Kentucky, Attorney General, Breonna Taylor's killers have not been arrested. You need to do something. And that was his first answer. And the next person, before they could speak, he said, just know that's going to be my answer to everything. So they're still using their platform in ways that I think are positive,
right.
Bring to light what has happened and what is still going on. I mean, today, example, you had Black Lives Strike, had the walkout today.
Saw that.
And so it certainly has not lost the steam that I think, and I've said earlier that I don't want to see get lost. But, then you flip it. WNBA, I think the women of basketball are always standing up for all that's going on in the world. And to have Congressman Loeffler, part owner of the Atlanta team, not want to stand by her players and the teammates who want to make a stand for Black Lives Matter, that's a problem. Like that's a problem. And how do you fix that?
Well, and I think the problem there is that, you have a league that is diverse. You have a fan base that is diverse. And if you are not willing to listen to participate in, have the conversation, or field the conversation that's important to those who support you and who fuel your product, then we have an issue. Yeah, we have an issue. And Steve, just one thing I want to say is, because I don't want to forget to get there, is Steve, you mentioned that, but this is more than George Floyd. It is Breonna Taylor. It is Stephon Clark. It is Philando Castile. It is Alton B. Sterling. It's Walter L. Scott. It's Tamir Rice. It's Michael Brown. It's Eric Garner. It's Amadou Diallo. There are a lot of names out there that I will not take away from George Floyd, but I absolutely want to make sure that, for lack of a better term, we are passionate about the justices and injustices of this world, not because we saw it on TV, because they happen more often than we see it on TV.
No doubt.
No doubt.
Coach, I cut you off.
Well, you mentioned professional sports, and I think just from what I've seen too, I think the major colleges are doing good with, if you follow them with seminars with their teams, whether it's a Big Ten football team or ACC basketball team, and love what Coach K said, by the way, speaking of ACC. But another pro sport, little shout out to the PLL, which is the new lacrosse league, which is going to play their 2-week quarantined championship series coming up here in 2 weeks.
We're going to have to get one of those guys on here, I hope.
We absolutely will. But follow Paul Rabel, because Paul Rabel
stepped up big the other day.
He did. He stepped up big. And in terms of the PLL representing Black Lives Matter, I mean, that's, again, the sport of lacrosse is growing so fast, and to have the most iconic figure in the entire sport to be putting out the videos he's putting out, and to be wearing that T-shirt, and to be talking about those uncomfortable things is pretty cool. So just applaud to follow them. And local guy, DeMatha guy.
Yeah. You guys sent me something about him, and I took a look there. And I think it's important for someone like him and Coach
Absolutely.
K and everyone to understand that we as we embrace this, we might be taking steps that we're not used to taking. But let's find out what's important to those who are in our community, so we can represent that. If I lived in a community of all, dog lovers, I'd find out what's important to them. It probably is near where Joey lives, because he's a dog lover, right? We found that out last week. But you find out what's important to those people, around you, and it shouldn't be just about the dollars and cents. 90% of, or let's say 68% of the folks who support us are Black folks. We better pay attention to this. We got to pay attention to it, because 100% of the folks that support us are humans, and we've got to care about what matters to humans. And I think if we start there, or if we get back to there, we'll understand that, I don't know you, Casey, but your daughter can swim in my pool whenever she wants. I don't care what color she is. And you've invited me over to your house. And Steve, we've always been great friends. And, I'm a dreamer. I want it to be simple. I want to have just one big world party. I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you are. It just doesn't matter to me. For those who don't know me, my wife is white. I am Black. My kids are mixed. My kids look like Jared. That's what my kids look like. And, so, I don't know. I get frustrated. I want to cry. I want to be happy, because I think we've created some great things in this world. But I also know that in the year 2000, or let's say the year 1999, it was illegal for a Black and white person to still get married in Alabama. In 2000, it became legal. So that's not that long ago. That's not that long ago. And so I get passionate about these things because, I'm passionate about issues as they relate to Black folks. Black lives do matter. I'm passionate about, issues that happen on the gay side, the straight side. I'm not God, so I can't tell you who to love. I'm not God, so I can't say what race belongs here and what race belongs there. But I know that we're all here. We're all here. And I don't know. I'm just kind of talking here. But we were talking about sports and what their response has been like. And I think you guys.
I appreciate you sharing what you did.
Cover that. Let's set coaching aside. We each have a duty to put more into this world than we take out of this world. And pursuant to that, tell our listeners what you'd like to see in terms of racial change.
Steve?
We got another hour?
You know what? We've got as long as you want. We can break it up into 2 parts, or we can do whatever, but I don't want to stop the conversation.
I mean, I just want to see a world where I don't feel like every day I've got to worry for my kids.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I could talk for hours about it, but in its simplest terms, its simplest forms, that's the change I want to see. I want to see where my sons have the same opportunities as anyone that they stand next to, and I don't believe that they get that, or in the world we're living in, we'll get that. I want to see a world where we're not killing each other based on what one looks like, what his race is, what his color is, his or hers.
You know, I agree. My son is 10. And I've had conversations with him about when he goes to college. He wants to go to Duke. He sees them win games. He wants to go to Duke. I always put him University of South Carolina. I don't know why. I put my daughter at Tennessee because I wanted to be a ball. But, you're at the University of South Carolina. Or you get a scholarship offer if he's a great enough athlete to play at University of Alabama. And you're going to a party with your friends and you're walking down the street and, you might look different than someone. And I've got to explain to him that he's got to do what the cops say. Because I don't care if you're right or not. I need you to come home.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've got to explain that to my son. Casey, I don't know if you've had that conversation with your son, and whether you have or have not doesn't make you a good or bad person. But as a black man in America, I've got to have that conversation with my son. That I need him to come home. And if you have to be a punk and you have to, say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to the cop, then you have to do that because you got to come home. That's more important than being right. That's more important than saying, I wasn't going that fast, officer, or there's nothing in the car, officer, or just because I left that party doesn't mean that I'm selling whatever those guys are selling or doing whatever they're doing. It's not a matter of whether you're right or not. Because in their eyes, if they want you to be wrong, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's the toughest conversations. Like having a high school student, I know how many times as a kid I pressed upon my mom. I tried different ways to work the system,
Right.
because my mom was single parent and raising 3 kids, and so there were times staying over at grandma's. You find a way to want to stay over at grandma's because you could get
away with something.
Get away with some stuff. Staying out later at a party.
Right.
Even some nights just getting out to the party, and having those conversations that I have to have with Jared all the time. And I know it's some of his innocence that I want to be there for him as a kid. And that, that's not, son. Yes. And I have to have you prepared for this. And it's not that I want to hold you back from growing and being the young man you want to become, but there are certain things as your dad that I have to do, that I know I have to do to protect you, that you don't totally understand yet.
He doesn't get it, right?
Doesn't get it yet. And it goes back to what I felt. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, is that comfortability. I'm with the boys, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. Until
you're no longer good.
You're at the party and you're the one not throwing the party. It's not even your house.
Right.
But you're on your knees with the gun to the back of your head.
Right.
And the cops questioning you. And you're just there.
Right.
And these are these are conversations that I gotta have with them. And it's not easy. And it's not easy because I want them to be able to do things that they feel like their friends can do. And I want them to have and learn from experiences as I did. But I also know that I totally understand now why my mom was no.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't explain it to me in that way. And so you know, they say that it goes full circle.
You realize how smart your mom was, right?
I'm living in it right now. You know, it's as simple as just being in our pandemic and him wanting to just go to a friend's house, to get out of our house, to be able to see somebody different. You know, just to have that comfortability again. It sucks having to have those hard conversations, and I'm going to continue to have them because I know I want him to be around a lot longer than me.
Right.
And I want him to be able to be prepared for when he has to have these tough conversations, because he will one day.
Right.
He will.
Casey, are you having that conversation with Cole?
And that's not a conversation, you know, that's not a conversation that I've had with Cole, right? You know, in terms of racial change, I think about, and I've mentioned the spirituality part, but a way to teach young people to resolve issues in a spirit of humility, charity, empathy, the listen factor that we teach our kids. There's so much thrown at them at a young age, but you know, I mentioned restoring yourself a couple times a day as a coach, but we've got to find a way to restore to the kids and continually hammer those thoughts of humility, of empathy, of charity. Look, everybody is so quick to blame others, especially who are on the opposite side of what we're discussing this evening.
Right.
So quick to blame others. And I said it before, man, unless you shine that flashlight on your own issues, you're just going to keep blaming people, and we're going to have the same BS over and over again. So to me, it has to start at a young age, and it has to start with that compassion, that humility. But again, gentlemen, I don't know what those conversations are like that you're having with your sons. Again, I'm very proud of the way my son has been raised and the way the conversations we have about this very issue in the car ride, and the things he says. But I don't know. I
don't think there's a void because you don't know. I mean, you know, you're having conversations with your kids that I might not have with mine, or Steve might not have with his, and but those are very real, you know, conversations. We have to think about those things, and you know, I've probably had that conversation a half dozen times. My boy's only 10, you know, and that's something very. I hope that the conversation I had with him and I will continue to have with him are in vain, because I hope he never has to experience that. Folks, let's pay some bills right quick, and we're going to get right back to it.
This segment of Take ATO with Turner and O'Neill is sponsored by Dynamic DJ Entertainment.
You become the star right here with the DJ Krissy Karaoke Show. Choose your song and step to the mic.
The Tamara Cusick team. Ready, set, sold. With a proven track record in real estate, call 301-580-5002 or visit Tamara 4 Homes. That's the number 4.com. The Tamara Cusick team, with over $1 billion in real estate sales since 2005.
We're right back at it. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. We're diving into some great stuff right now. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time thus far. I want to remind everyone that you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Turner O'Neill Podcast, Twitter at Turn On Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. So hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and add, spread the word. We are celebrating 500 followers on Instagram. Thanks to all of you who have push that envelope and told your friends about it. Steve, a lot of your players, former players, coaches, you know, same with you, Coach O'Neill. I heard that you talked to your son and said, look, grab all your teammates and all that. You want some followers, so we appreciate the efforts you've put in on, you know, I keep using the word amplify, but amplifying our platform here and getting the word out there. I was very, very happy. I did see that University of Michigan head men's basketball coach Juwan Howard followed us this week, so that was exciting stuff.
The Fab Five, not the starting five. The Fab Five.
You know, let's take a break from the conversation for a minute. That was I don't do college basketball, so don't be mad. I do pro
Juwan
basketball.
Howard, Chris Webber.
I was going to try to do it, but
sorry. Go ahead.
steal my thunder.
Those are the two easiest names. Finish it.
Jaron Jackson.
Nope.
No.
Okay, so hold on.
Jackson.
Jimmy Jackson.
Nope.
Jimmy King.
Yes.
All right, Jimmy King, Juwan Howard, Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, and give me that last one, Steve.
You had the last name.
Jackson. Jackson's last name. Well, you can tell me yes or no.
Yes.
These guys are-
All right. So think of a boxer. Sugar.
Joe?
Blank. Leonard.
Ray Jackson.
Yes.
I don't remember him so much. Did he make the association?
He did not.
Okay. All right.
Good job.
That was the Fab Five. Well, one of those Fab Five is following us on Twitter and Instagram.
My sister was a freshman the same year they came in at the University of Michigan. And so my one incredible Michigan experience, I come up there. I was in high school at the time. We go up there. Michigan football's playing Northwestern. We literally watched Desmond Howard return a punt, do the Heisman move. I'm sitting there in the big house. Right?
Right.
I'm losing my mind. Like, what is this? 110,000 fans. And then they had an open gym with the Fab Five over in the Chrysler Arena across the street.
You got to see both of those.
It was just this, where am I? What is this incredible place? And so I kind of started to follow the Wolverines.
All right. And he is following us now. I love that. If you ask my kids, they know that Chris Webber called a timeout that he did not have, and there was a technical foul attached to that, I believe.
He shouldn't be held to that. I feel bad.
All right. Well, yeah. that happened there. It was like a Johnny Manziel moment. I think it was like a Johnny Manziel moment. We're gonna go back. I don't know if I'm gonna ask Krissy to edit that out.
Can we have a bloopers reel put out for that?
Part
later?
of the cloth of this episode is that.
We need to have a bloopers reel.
Oh, we're gonna get some. Don't worry.
That's gonna be funny.
People need to hear the pregame and the postgame conversations we have and all that stuff. Gentlemen, first of all, before we go any further, I don't know how much of this episode we're going to do, but I want to thank you for coming to the table, being willing to have a conversation where we're just going to let it go where it goes. I think we come back to this conversation again. The unfortunate thing is I think that society is going to make us come back to this conversation again. I think there's going to be something we're going to have to talk about. I don't dare say that this all goes away with one conversation or one administration or one social justice movement, one march, or one street that says Black Lives Matter. I think it has to be something we live. Neither one of you have players that had one great day of practice that turned into a great career. It has to be consistent. It has to be you're practicing every day. You're working on that mile time every day.
Repetition.
Yeah, repetition. So why should this social justice movement be any different? It can't be, Steve, that you meet with your peer group, you have a conversation, you feel better about it, and then we don't talk about it until someone's knee is on someone's neck again. You know, it doesn't happen because you've corrected language in a locker room one time, and then we never talk about it. We can't run away from the conversation. No. You are the one who talked about, being uncomfortable, and we got to get there. We got to be willing to stay there and not get to that level where, we drop the N-word in a song and play it off like we're dropping it in a song, but it's because we want to be able to say it and be loose with it. We've got to understand what this all means, and it doesn't mean that it goes away on July 20th when we close the show.
Exactly. I'll be honest. I want to thank you guys for listening to me. I'll be honest. I was not uncomfortable, but a little nervous about some of the questions or how I would sound. And the more I just kind of flash deeper, I'm okay. I'm okay with it because at least I'm sitting here with you gentlemen and listening and just I'm very thankful for you helping me navigate through this too.
Well, he hasn't seen what my friends did to his car outside yet, so save those comments, Casey.
Wow. Come on, man.
No, Casey, I appreciate you saying that, but I think I felt that from you. As we talked about this being this week's subject,
right?
And so for me, I thank you for being comfortable with getting uncomfortable, and I think the only way we're going to continue to grow from it is that those who are scared of being uncomfortable, they gotta let their hair down and get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
we're going to be able to make change, I believe, one brick at a time. It's kind of always been the model. It's the model for me in life, one brick at a time, building a program, working with kids, having relationship. It's always going to be one brick at a time, but the more that people can understand that it's okay to be uncomfortable, the better the opportunity will be for change. And so, as I felt like, I listened to some of my kids challenge their teammates. Casey, I challenge you. Continue to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Absolutely.
And I challenge us all to do that. But I just hope that we can stay on this moving forward. I think, our change is going to come. Probably one of my favorite songs, Sam Cooke. I just feel like it sucks that it won't happen in my lifetime. I wish it would. I would love to be able to say I lived it and saw it. But I know that right now we're moving in the right direction. Is it fast enough? No. But it is moving in the right direction. And we got to keep bringing people together to talk through this and figure out, to explain to everyone what's going to be right. My fear right now is November. Like, that's going to be one of the first places you see a potential a big step in the right direction, depending on how that election goes. And people got to go out to vote and vote for the right reasons. Vote for what's right for this world. Vote for what's right in terms of growing and building equality for everyone. And I just hope we can continue just to do more.
Steve, you said you want to be able to say you lived it and you saw it. You're living it. You're seeing it. I have no doubt that each of us, Coach Casey, Coach O'Neill, Coach Turner, myself, our engineer, DJ Krissy, I have no doubt that we will see some of what we want to see in our lifetime, but I don't think the final chapter is written in our lifetime.
No.
But I think that if we put more into this world than we take out, if we live each day, and I don't want to sound corny, but if we live each day knowing that, Steve, thank you for being a friend. I've told you publicly many times, how much of a friend you've been. Coach O'Neill, you and I'm sure we'll get there. It starts with a bromance, but I'm sure, we'll get there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, what you don't know about Steve is Steve decided to take under his wing a guy like me who, when I was 1 year behind them in school, their class had all the jocks. Their class had all the good-looking girls. Their class was the best class. Sorry to my sister class of 87. Their class was the best class. But you know what my sister did? I was a freshman. She was a senior. She bought me my freshman year yearbook. I'll never forget that. I still have the receipt because I didn't have the $25 to buy that yearbook. But Steve and them took me in. And I'm not a jock. But to this day, I think people believe I was in their class because people like Steve, people like Wilbur. And they took a kid who got cut from the baseball team, who played football only because he was big. I wasn't a great athlete, who didn't even think about playing basketball. But you're talking about a kid who was on free lunch, who got made fun of, by today's standards was bullied, but not these guys.
Right.
These guys made me a part of their crew. And you don't realize until way later that, man, those guys didn't have to do that. And I know we're not talking race necessarily, but go ahead, Steve.
But I think there was so much that was in common. I mean, yeah, I think I got recognized for being a good athlete around the school. But I was the same kid like you, Kurtis. I was on the meal plan at school. I carried those tickets around to get lunch. And again, I go back to the blessing and the curse. I just think the blessing was being able to create relationships that I have from Blair because of the way society, that little society was set up in terms of everyone's one, everyone's together. Yeah, were there some racial tensions in different aspects of the school? No doubt. but I think for the most part, we had a place that our faculty and staff made us all feel together as one. And so it was easy for us to bring the next guy in to be a part of what was, call it our clique, call it our group, whatever you want to call it.
Well, you did it. Thank you. I got to make sure people know how thankful I am for that. You talk about all these friendships you have. You know, you see this stuff on Facebook where they say, how many of you can say that you haven't had fast food this week? Don't worry, I'll wait. Well, you know what I'm getting at. This week, Jane Hodges put out there, you know, who out there has had friends more than 20 years? Don't worry, I'll wait. And I'm like, hell, I went to Blair. That's easy.
That's easy.
Right.
That's easy. You know, I've known Steve since 1984, 85, somewhere in there.
85, 86. Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. So those friendships aren't hard to come by. I feel like because we grew up in a melting pot, Casey, we've dominated some of this. I don't want to take away from any subject that
Not
you
at all.
came to the table wanting to talk about.
No, I'm enjoying listening and getting to know not only you a little bit better, but especially my new bromance, Kurtis. But that's the point. Just sitting here listening about it, it just strengthens the team here, and it's helpful to me to kind of just see a window into your lives and who you guys and where you come from, because that's another thing. Finding out what people are going through, where they come from. I've always talked about understand people's stories because they're really cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know your full story. I don't know yours yet. I don't know yours, DJ Krissy, but that's how I get to know you guys. And for you to share that story of being a 15, 14-year-old freshman and remembering that act of kindness to this day, what is that, however many years ago, that's what it's all about. So don't worry. I'm listening. I'm enjoying the stories and getting to know my team here better.
They didn't wait to care.
They did not wait.
They did not wait to care. They showed a little kid who's
dang, Kurtis, way to bring that in. I love it.
who's my mom raised me and my sister. You know, my dad was certainly in the picture, but they had split up when I was in fourth grade or whatever. And wow, my mom did a tremendous job, Steve.
I think the thing that makes it so tough too at times or made it hard for me to look at the race piece back then was always the act of kindness from the group of friends that I was hanging out with, from their families. I can go back to a simple one. I mean, I'm playing hoops down at Sligo Creek Park. Ball comes off the rim. Still see this finger's somewhat funky, dislocated, and the ball hits. My fingers like literally shifted over, and I didn't even notice until I went to go pick up the ball. And I picked up the ball and I just kept right up the hill to my grandmother's house. Now we know, no cell phones. Probably hard as hell to reach your parent who's at the office or at work.
Right.
Can't get in touch with my mom. I'm calling the heck out of her. Can't get in touch with her. And to be able to pick up the phone to one of my best friends, Johannes Pickett, his mom come grab me, take me to the hospital, get the finger put back into place, stay with me the whole time, get me home.
By the time your mom gets home.
and for me as a kid, those were the things that made me never feel like I saw color. Because it was, I can remember that, another good friend of mine, Gordon Davis, we played sports growing up, the Boys and Girls Club together. His dad always had us all over. His parents always had us. I mean, there was the house, like, you were making sure you didn't screw up during the week because you knew you wanted to go hang out at Gordon's house on the weekend.
Right.
And it becomes, it wasn't like a one-night deal. It comes Friday and you're going back home on Sunday. So, and to have my Caucasian friends always feeling like they made me be a part. I mean, to this day, being a young man who didn't grow up with his dad in the picture, I look at him to today. One of my best examples of a man, one of my best examples as a mentor, one of my best examples as a coach, Walt Wolfram. And that name will probably be familiar to a lot of people who will listen to this podcast, is because his three sons were for a number of years the star quarterbacks, probably from mid '80s through the
Okay.
through the late '80s at Springbrook High School, who was winning state championships. But Coach Wolfram, to this day, like, treated me like a son. He treated all of us that way.
Yeah.
And I always try to pay homage to him because he showed me what being a dad was about. He showed me what being a mentor is about. He showed me what coaching a group of young men who come from all different walks of life and treating each and every one of them the same was about. And Coach, I hope you hear this one day. I just need you to know I love you for what you taught me, and I appreciate you for doing that.
That's what it's all about, right there.
Unscripted.
But it is the beauty of what somebody can do and the effect they can have on somebody's life. It can bring up that feeling and that emotion right here in the studio.
All these years later, right?
All these years. I mean, it's
that's
unparalleled.
That's humanity, and that's what sports will do. That's what life will do.
Sports mentors, people that are just there, and again, knowing those kids, knowing somebody cared about them and showing them the right way. You know, that the humility, and I think a lot of it brings me to, you know, hearing you talk that way, thinking about my upbringing. You know, while I did grow up in an area in Upper Montgomery County, I just always appreciated my father and mother raising us to be who we wanted to be. You know, I have 3 siblings. You know, my oldest sister is you know, works, as I mentioned, in social justice and trying to change the world, and you know, through women and children, trying to help them throughout the world. You know, my brother is a very workaholic, strong-minded. You know, just works, you know, just gets after it. My other sister is more or less, you know, in the artist type and just a beautiful soul. We're all really different, is my point. And it wasn't that we were given, this is how you're going to be, right? You know, you're going to be a lawyer and you're going to be a doctor. I mean, they just let us kind of grow up through this. And when I hear you talk about those mentors, I get those feelings that, look, while we are focusing on a lot of the negative that's in the world right now, to bring it home, speaking about all the beauty that's in the world, or that can be there, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to think back to those people, and gosh bless, we need more of it. We really do.
Well, and here we are. We are, you know, I don't know that we need to look to someone else. It does start in your locker room, where you said, you know, have you really flashed inside to see what you can do? You know, it shows up in the form of, you know, players coming back who want to coach and want to lead because you were, and I apologize that I can't recall the name, Wolfram?
Walt Wolfram.
Walt Wolfram. You are someone's Walt Wolfram, right? That's who you are. And he had a Walt Wolfram in his life.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're someone's Steve Turner. And in 30 years, there's a podcast or whatever happens at that time where they're talking about you, you know, and they hope you're listening. So we have to understand you as coaches can do that. You can further the racial conversation. You can, you know, educate your players on locker room talk about race, about women, about other genders, about whatever. You know, I don't want to use the Q word quote, but I don't want to quote, but did not one of our presidents say we are the change we've been looking for?
Yes.
So it does start, it starts at your home. It starts at your home. It starts in your locker room. It continues, you know, when your son is on a team bus. It, you know, we don't stop it here, but you are someone's Walt Wolfram.
Well, I think it kind of goes a little different to the subject, but it's the coaching piece that I've always said frustrates me in what I do, is that I think at times the people that we serve, some of the people around them, forget that our purpose isn't just about winning games. and you have a subject like we're talking about tonight, that it's so much more important for us to be able to help our young men grow and to understand what it's, for some, what it's like to live in my shoes. For some, to understand what it's like to live in Coach O'Neill's shoes. Like, even in the Black Lives Matter, there are still other pressures on a man like Coach to be able to make sure that, you know, in a demographic of lacrosse that there's a small amount, that he's got to be able to make sure that the needs are being met of all his players. And a parent should be able to appreciate that there's a man like him who can be empathetic, be willing enough to sit down and have uncomfortable conversations with folks, be able to go and read up, listen to, watch, so that he can try his best to educate or to bring people on where he's not comfortable with that subject, but he makes sure that there's people that can talk to his players about that. Like, I wish parents would just understand, like, I'm more than a coach. I'm not just a coach. I mean, that's a small piece to who I am as Steve Turner.
The beauty is getting to, I don't know, your practice time, 4 to 6 or 4:30. You know, that's the dream, is getting to practice and being practiced. The phone is away. It's just you, the coaches, and the team, and you're going through it. The rest of it, the 97%, 80, 98%, whatever it is so much more. It is those deep conversations with the young men. It is dealing with the things that they're dealing with. And when you have parents that want things done immediately and not understanding, you know, this is a process. Let's, you know, who cares about playing right now? Let's talk about his mindset at the moment. You know what I'm talking about? Like the young man and what he's going through. I think you touched on a good point there, Steve. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it. And, you know, look, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be around these young men and these kids and to work with them. And ever so more often now am I understanding the true importance of it, as opposed to win, but it's more, let's win with these kids. You know, let's win with their mind, their body, their spirit.
And you want them to be able to navigate through life.
I want them to change the world.
You know, I don't have to tell you guys numbers, but, you know, if you have 14 guys on your basketball team and, you know, 4 of them play big time basketball on the next level, then, you know, maybe one of them makes it on the level beyond that, but you're not, you know, I always used to say to my players, you know, let's say I coach women in high school and college basketball, folks. And, you know, if you make it to the WNBA, how long is your career going to be? 13 years, 14 years. You know, I'm not trying to prepare you for 14. I'm trying to prepare you for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And I felt fortunate as a male coaching women's basketball to be able to, you know, impact women's lives. I'm very passionate about women in sports. You know, but you guys have an opportunity through your leadership to lead these young men in more, like you said, than lacrosse and more than basketball. Unfortunately, until recently, there wasn't really a professional lacrosse league or something like that to aspire to, and now we have, you know, something great going on there. But how many of those guys will get to, you know, play in the PLL? And so you've got to prepare them for the rest of their lives, and the rest of their lives where there will be a good old boy network, the rest of their lives where there will be a boardroom that, you know, maybe Steve and I don't get a seat at, not because we're not qualified, but because I used to, you know, drink brandy with his father at the golf club. You know, let's give him a job. You know, and I'm not suggesting that a Black Lives Matter movement nor social justice calls for opportunity where opportunity is not warranted or earned. I'm not suggesting that. You know, but I am suggesting that, you know, I don't know. There are a lot of lives out there. There are a lot of folks out there that look different than the majority. That, you know, those numbers change throughout the years. But, you know, they're the Donald Sterlings of the world who who profit off of, their team being predominantly black, yet he doesn't want his, girlfriend, 30 years his junior, to bring the most iconic black figure in all of basketball. Well, I'm sorry. We know the GOAT. But, he told his girlfriend, it's okay that you're friends with them, just don't bring them to any of my games. Wow. And that was, 3-4 years ago when Adam Silver, that was the first thing Adam Silver had to deal with. Adam Silver, who I think is he's the GOAT of all commissioners right now, if you ask me. He's putting basketball in a great position to speak to social justice. But we're talking 3 or 4 years ago, we had an owner, and he's not the only one who thinks this. He's not the only one who thinks this, who did not want his girlfriend at the time to bring them, quote unquote, to my games. Yet them is all over your roster. Because people like us pay our money to see people like them, shoot a basketball. I'll tell you what, when people, and we don't need to go into the subject fully, but when people talk about the salaries these athletes make, I've never paid to go to a game to see Dr. Jerry Buss. I've gone to see Kobe and Shaq and Powell. These are the players that make up your league. Right. You should be in tune with what's important to the players that make up your league, speaking to the Atlanta Dream. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone almost 2 hours, and I don't think we've lacked for material. You might want to rewind. There were some laughs. There were some outtakes. There were some tears. There was a lot going on. Krissy cried. Krissy laughed. We did a little bit of all of that. What's important is that we spoke about it. What's more important is that we know our work is not done in one podcast. We know that we have a village that needs to raise Jared, that needs to support Cole. And we have plenty of players out there who are confused right now, parents that are confused, and I hope we were able to clear some of that up, or at least start a pathway to a conversation that can clear it up. Because I promise you this, no one sitting at this table has all the answers. We don't, but we're going to talk about it, and that's what we did tonight. Gentlemen, I'd like to suggest that at some point we do a part 2. We do a part 2. I think we have 2 parts in this episode tonight.
Right.
But maybe parts 3 and part 4. Hey, I got to do some official business here. I want to invite friends and partners. Don't forget, you can be a friend of the program. Just go to our website, click partnerships, and we have the personal contribution level and we have the corporate contribution level. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Turner O'Neill Podcast is where you'll find us. Twitter at Turner On Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. So follow, like, add, and spread the word. Go to our website. Click Submit Your Idea. We want to know what you're thinking. We will answer questions live on the air. We didn't do that this week. Not all submissions or questions will be used. Each week we will read questions on the podcast. Also send us your comments, your critiques, your thoughts. I do need to thank Coach Casey O'Neill, Coach Steve Turner, DJ Krissy, our engineer, Paula, and by the way, Adam and Chelsea get the studio ready every week before you guys come here. However, each week we end with a quote. It's not my week. It's not Casey's week. Coach Turner, you are on the clock.
Before I go to my quote, I just want to talk about some potential. I know people are sitting at home. Some people are not in work because of all that is going on. But as I said, I want to be an ambassador that keeps pushing this forward. And I think there's some things that people should take a stop, look at, listen to, read. So I'm going to give a movie to take a look at, The 13th on Netflix. A book, The Blood of Emmett Till, and a TED Talk. Brian Stevenson, we need justice to talk about an injustice. Take some time, check those out, educate yourself, learn more. And to the quote, may God rest his soul. My quote this week is coming from John Lewis. If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. I'll say it again. If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. Thank you, John Lewis.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show.
See y'all soon.
Steve, Coach O'Neill, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time. We're going to get into some more stuff. Good night.
Thanks to our partners, MCF Mortgage, the Tamara Cusick Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Healthy Baller, our sponsors, Next Level Lacrosse, and O'Neill Development LLC, our donors, Justin O'Neill, donor, Winsight Media, and Redwood Investments. Partnership opportunities are available. Questions and submissions to the podcast can be submitted by going to www.turneroneillpodcast.com. All submissions will be reviewed for content and may or may not be included in a future podcast. When submitting content, you agree to the use of your likeness and social media identity should we choose to include your content. No compensation is offered for submitted content. Where possible, credit will be given for creative content. Take a TO with Coaches Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Krissy. You may contact us on social media at Turner O'Neill Podcast or by visiting www.turneroneillpodcast.com. You may also email the show at turneroneillpodcast@gmail.com.